and every single one of those studies shows some kind of positive benefit. Now, I believe with that, we can take this and with focus, create products that were really going to help people. I have a good friend here in Lexington that had nose cancer, had a tumor coming out of his nose, and they had to amputate his whole nose off.
Now, he's got some experience in the auditor's office. For 2.5 years, he worked in the auditor of Kentucky's office, Ed Hatchett. So Ed Hatchett was the auditor in the 90s, and Chris Tobe had worked for him. In 2008, he was the appointed board of trustees of the pension system. So in 2008, Chris Tobe had a front row seat to the pension crisis. Now, he wrote Kentucky Fried Pensions 2013, 2018, so 2 books, one 5 years ago or 6 years ago, one 1 year ago, so he updated the book, or maybe it's a brand new book. He criticizes Mike Harmon as having done halfway audits at best. He doesn't like any of the audits that he's done. He really hated the Christmas audit of the Kentucky retirement system. That pissed Chris Tobe off the most. So you audit it on Christmas and nobody's paying attention, and there's no corruption there. So that's Mike Harmon, right? He audited the pension, but apparently there's no corruption. Okay. So Mike Harmon isn't an independent person, but he's actually covering for his buddies. Chris Tobe basically says that the pension system in Kentucky is a total shit show. There's $30-something billion in unfunded liabilities. So $30-something billion. You got $30 billion? I don't have 30. Who's going to pay $30 billion? I think the total state budget is $18 billion. So the unfunded liability is twice the state budget. So Chris Tobe is talking about how there's retired bureaucrats. They game the system. So they jump in, become a pension fund manager, take a bunch of money. They keep on doing these alternative investments. So it's all behind closed doors. You got hedge fund moguls. Manhattan Institute influences the Wall Street Journal, and Steve Ratner pays a $6 million fine to the SEC, but he's the darling of the MSNBC Corporation and New York Times. So Chris Tobe essentially says because you're questioning Wall Street, that just shuts the Democrats and the Republicans up. He wants more accountability, more transparency. In 2014, Harvard had ranked Kentucky as the most corrupt state in the union. In 2014, Kentucky had 25% more alternative investments, 27% higher costs, and 15% lower returns in other states. So they're doing these riskier investments, but they're not making as much money as they thought they were going to. Higher costs are going up, so it's getting more expensive to run the pensions, and they're trying to do these other risky investments, and yet they're still not getting the returns that other states are doing. So this hedge fund of hedge funds, hedge fund is kind of a cuss word now, so people call themselves different things, but they're hedge funds. This is being, the pension, a lot of the investments for the pension fund is being outsourced to Wall Street. So they're creating a hedge fund of hedge funds, and then when Wall Street underperforms, there's a specific firm on Wall Street, but they kept on underperforming. So they're making all these, management positions, and yet none of the money is coming back. By 2018, 30% of KRS, Kentucky Retirement System's overall portfolio, was tied up in so-called alternative investments, various alternative investments. So the Kentucky pension system has $33 billion in unfunded liabilities. $33 billion. How many opportunities would that be? $33 billion. If you were just to give Kentuckians $50,000 from that $33 billion, how many Kentuckians could you make, their dream? They could start their small business with $50,000. So billion is 9 zeros, right? So let's just figure this out. So I'm having the big number first, which I should have done it the opposite way. But if I take this number and divide it by 50,000, we would have been able to have paid 660,000 Kentuckians $50,000 so they could invest in small businesses. $33 billion is a shit ton of money. So, yeah, what the hell? We got nothing to show for it. So the Kentucky pension system is got $33 billion in unfunded liabilities across 8 different pension plans. These hedge funds contain trade secrets. So this is all behind closed doors. The public doesn't know what the fuck is going on when it comes to the pension plans. The hedge funds contain trade secrets, so they've used that as an excuse for why it has to be hidden from the public view. Oh, we can't show the public this. We got trade secrets in these documents. We don't want the public to know these trade secrets. Why would a budget have trade secrets on it? What are you all paying that we're not supposed to know that you're paying? There's one pension bill in Kentucky that looked like it was promising and it could actually fix the pension system. But right before it was passed, they took the 2 most meaningful clauses out. So what the pension bill was going to do is they were going to make full fee disclosure. Every pension, every hedge fund, every Wall Street firm, we want to know full fee disclosure. How much are you getting paid? How much is being paid to you? How often? And number 2, the open bidding process for pension investment contracts. So whenever there's a contract, if you need to build a bridge, you offer the contract out to, the general public, and then businesses, and corporations, maybe governments, different entities bid on that. And it's supposed to be public. It's supposed to be public. But the open bidding process for pension investment contracts is closed. You have no idea who's bidding it. You have no idea who's being paid any of this stuff. And you have no idea how much the fees are that they're charging. Chris Tobe believes that there's a pay-to-play behind all of it. So get on the gravy train, but you got to give us a little bit of money. Pay a little something, right? Grease their palms and then get on the gravy train. So Kentucky taxpayers are shoving out a whopping $400 million for pension fund managers. Rocky Atkins Free Community College and Technical Schools would cost $300 million. So for the same price that we would get pension fund managers, instead, we could have free community college and technical schools. The Huffington Post wrote an incredible piece on Chris Tobe, said that the hedge fund managers in Wall Street needs to be nervous with Chris Tobe. When the establishment, when Wall Street, I align with the people, right? If Wall Street hates you, then I am in love with you. If the war machine doesn't like you, Tulsi Gabbard, then I love you. So I can judge people by their enemies. So Chris Tobe is pissing people off on Wall Street. So he stood up to, he could get shot for all this. So Wall Street should be nervous with Chris Tobe. That's awesome. I like to hear that. We don't need to make Wall Street a shit ton of money. We need to help Kentucky out. So he's going to use the auditor subpoena power to make the pension board open up their books. So just open up their books. The pension board won't even open up their books. They won't let us know who is bidding on the different pension investment contracts, and they won't say how much they're charging. How much are your fees? How much are you charging the people of Kentucky? How come you can't ask these questions? So Chris Tobe is going to use the auditor subpoena power to make the pension board open up their books. Kentucky has been taking the pension funds, putting them in private equity investments, risky hedge funds. 30% of all the pension funds in Kentucky are already on Wall Street. 30%. The pension system is a gravy train for a bunch of retired bureaucrats, but not for the folks who the pensions are supposed to be for. The humble road workers and the teachers and the politicians and the millionaire judges. So Chris Tobe is a badass when he says he's going to be a pit bull in this fight against corruption. Chris Tobe has already gone up against a lot of powerful interests. Like I said, Sherry Donahue has too, but she hasn't wrote a book about it, and she hasn't, explained everything that's happened. So she says she's got this impressive resume, but I know specific details of what Chris Tobe has done. Chris Tobe got Tim Longmire thrown into federal prison. So Tim Longmire, he suspected him for corruption having to do with pensions or something. The FBI started watching him, and then they caught him for health care corruption. So Chris Tobe has also contacted the Securities and Exchange Commission about the corruption that was going on in Kentucky's pensions. Would they even know about that? Would the other two candidates even know you're supposed to contact the Securities and Exchange Commission? So 30% of the pension funds are already on Wall Street, right? They're gambling 30%, just casino gambling, just let it ride, roll the dice. Hopefully you get a 7 or 11 or however that game works. So the Kentucky pension is a gravy train for all those retired bureaucrats. It's a pay-to-play system, so a bunch of wealthy people jump in, pay a little bit of money, and get a heavy return off the backs of Kentuckians. So the pensions aren't going to the road workers, teachers, and that concerns me, but the politicians and the millionaire judges, we need to look into the millionaire judges. We've got to look into that. If you can only work for 4 years or 8 years or 10 years and then you're getting paid pensions, 100% of $130,000 for the rest of your life, so work 10 years and then get paid for 50 years for not doing jack shit, well, there's your corruption right there. Just cut the pensions for these millionaire judges. Tell these millionaire judges to invest in a 401k plan. They can afford it. So I asked Chris Tobe that on Facebook. He hasn't got back to me. But I overall believe his overall essence, right? He's wrote a book. It's thoughtful. He's been quoted, here and there about, pensions and corruptions and about his financial understanding, his financial expertise. David Sirota quoted him, and then, David Sirota quoted him on the Young Turks. So he'd be a pit bull in this fight against corruption. I believe that. He doesn't just want to go after the pensions. Chris Tobe also wants to audit the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Yum Center and the governor's corrupt practices with Brady Industries. What the hell is all that about? I haven't heard about the governor and Brady Industries and the Yum Center and the Department of Fish and Wildlife. So he is saying that Mike Harmon's audits on those 3 entities, at least 2 of the 3, was bullshit. So Mike Harmon is just covering up the corruption, whereas Chris Tobe would expose the corruption and have no shame about it. Now they're stealing money from the Kentucky taxpayers, so fuck you. You go to jail and you pay back the money. So Chris Tobe just is, I guess, so exciting and so interesting, and he's been writing about this for years. So he's got, an expertise that's higher than both of the other candidates and longer about this specific issue. So Chris Tobe absolutely looks like the man for the job. I would include, Chris Tobe should include Sherry Donahue and Kelsey Haynes Coots in it, because I think that they have something to add too. If you can put all 3 of these candidates together, I think all 3 candidates are better than Mike Harmon. Mike Harmon is such a douchebag, there's no fucking way he's actually done anything decent or good. So I would agree the overall analysis seems to be that he's covering up the crimes. He did point out that Matt Bevin paid his friend $215,000. He got him a raise, but I wonder if he was supposed to or he had to by law to disclose that, and then some investigative journalist was the one that actually pulled that little tidbit out. So, Sherry Donahue is a beast when it comes to, she stood up to the military-industrial complex. I mean, I feel like, you had me at standing up to the MIC. And she's worked for the Navy. She's worked for all these important, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Defense, FBI. She's done cybersecurity for Humana. So she's been doing a lot of shit for a lot of important people. She's been auditing for 20 years, multi-million-dollar projects. So she knows how to do it. She knows the job. She's qualified. She's got more money in her war chest than everybody else. I just like Chris Tobe better. So if Sherry Donahue would have started running 4 years ago, or if she wants to run in 4 years, if Chris Tobe doesn't step up and actually clean the pension system, then I would vote for Sherry Donahue in 4 years afterwards. Kelsey Hayes Coots, she's an impressive politician. I think she needs to do a job that, do the Secretary of State job. I think she would be better suited for the Secretary of State job than the auditor's job. But all of her, her politicking, her rhetoric, and all these ideas that she's suggesting are really good ideas that would benefit Chris Tobe. So if Chris Tobe is smart, if he wins, he should bring Sherry Donahue and Kelsey Hayes Coots of Louisville on board. Hire them if they want to do the job. If they truly want to be an auditor, he can hire a team of auditors, right? It's not just one auditor, but there's a team of auditors. So he could hire them onto, onto Kentucky's thing and, work together. They could all work together to get the pensions and get the money and to get the auditor's office back into shape. So, vote for Chris Tobe, Kentucky.